So we brought in the experts.
Yes.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the on-air voice of the Iowa Hawkeyes, Mr. Gary Dolphin.
Hi, everybody.
And the brand new sidekick, get a good look at him now, Mr. Former Hawkeye, former NFL player, Mr. Pat Angerer. Here is your Hawkeye preview.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Great to be back with y'all. This guy is going to be great. He's going to be right up there with Ed Podolak because they're very much alike. Self-deprecating, makes fun of himself, has great one-liners, and obviously one of the greatest linebackers in the history of Hawkeye football.
Depends who you
Pat
ask.
Angerer. I'm sorry, he said defensive back. He was a lightning quick corner, weren't you?
Well, if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough, man.
Exactly.
But I'm excited. It's a great opportunity. Obviously, it's something that I never in a million years thought I'd be doing. Obviously, I never thought anybody would put me on the radio. And to be fair, I never thought I'd even go to college. So this is a weird. Luckily, my tutor's here that got me through. Mary Lynn Bogard, the greatest woman ever.
You know, that's a good story because I didn't believe him when he first told me about his career at Iowa. You weren't even sure you wanted to go to school, right?
No, I mean, everybody in my family, not everybody, but my family's very military, and nobody in my family had ever gone to college. So to me, college really wasn't an option. And started getting recruited, and then I actually had to go to, when you get recruited, they come and they check your GPA, and I think I was ranked 350 out of 355 GPA-wise, so I failed ceramics in high school, which is pretty hard to do, but luckily we caught it early enough. I was able to get my life together and retake some classes that I did poorly on, but I'm glad that I'm glad I grew up a little bit, even though my wife would argue that I'm still not very mature.
No.
Yes.
This is why we hired him.
To get me out of the house.
Yeah, well, she called me and said, "Can you hire him, please?" Actually, we had a great list. We had an original list of about 10. And I knew half of that list would say, you know what, my kids are going into high school. They're in high school. I want to watch them play football and volleyball and soccer. We knew that was going to happen, and it did with 3 or 4 former greats. So we ended up with a list of 5 names, all great Hawks. And as I said at the time, I can work with any of them. They're all true blue, black and gold Hawks. And you can almost guess who they are. We had a couple from defense, special teams, offense. We had a quarterback very interested who would have been great. But my thinking, and I was one of 4 or 5 votes, but my deal was, look, we've been so doggone good on defense for so long with Norm Parker and Phil Parker, and going forward, it'd be kind of nice to have first off, it had to be somebody from the Kirk Ferentz era. That's only fair. And then if we slant toward defense, who's going to argue with that? And so we ended up with, I called him, I said, would you be interested in the new analyst? He said, what? He said, and I know how good of an interview he is, till my dying day, the night that Adrian Claiborne blocked the punt at Penn State and ran it in for a touchdown, and the Hawks rallied for the win. He had like 90 tackles that game. And so I got him on from the locker room afterwards, and I can hear the whooping and the hollering and the yelling, and we do about 5 minutes. I said, well, Pat, we got to wrap things up. Well, boy, that locker room really sounds jovial. Can you describe what you're seeing there? And there's a pause, and I hear, well, Dolph, there's a lot of naked guys coming out of the shower.
And that was the last time they let me on the radio. Now I'm on it. Oh, yeah.
I look at Podolak and he's going, let's go to a break, buddy boy. But you know what? He is what is so Iowa radio, because we're unlike you guys. Our listening audience is unlike anybody else in the country. We are a ag state, a farming state. We've got farmers in the field, welders, plumbers, people washing their car, driving up and down I-80 or I-35. And Saturday afternoon in the fall is a ritual for Hawkeye football. And yeah, you're tuning in to hear the X's and the O's, but you also want a little bit of humor because we're all from small town. I mean, even Des Moines in circumference and reference is small town America. So that's who we are. And if we get a little sideways every now and then, the broadcast. So he's all uptight about tomorrow. I said, look, we don't have any script. I'm going to look and see what happens. That's what I'll explain. You just tell him why it happened or how it happened. He goes, well, that sounds simple enough to me. I said, pretend you're in the middle of the huddle calling defensive signals. Did you call defensive signals, or would they let you?
Yes, I did. I remember my first time in the NFL when I called defensive signal. I'm sitting there, I'm lining up. I've got Bob Sanders, Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis. Dwight just got in the Hall of Fame. All these guys, and I say, hey, over cover 2. And Robert Mathis goes, say it with your chest. Over cover 2.
Well, you had some Bob Sanders. I mean, those Colt defenses were spectacular. Freeney's one of the greatest ever to play the position at tackle. When I think of that 08, 09 era of Iowa defense, Claiborne, Mitch King, Carl Klug, Broderick Binns, A.J. Eads, Jeremiah Hunter, Pat Angerer,
Christian
Mike,
Ballard.
Who?
Christian Ballard.
Christian Ballard, who played a lot in the middle. Micah Hyde, Tyler Sash, Brett Greenwood. Who am I missing in the back end?
Amari Spivey.
Amari Spivey. I don't know that there's ever been an Iowa defense better than that 2-year stretch you had.
2002 would argue. But,
oh, yeah, I know they would.
They would argue, but
yeah.
I think we'd win, obviously, since, 09 was the greatest team of all time, I think. That's
it'd be in my top 5. I mean, Georgia Tech was averaging 330 yards a game running 330 yards a game. They had that vaunted triple option run threat, and they got 138 yards of total offense that night. And that's how the Iowa defense played back then, and that's how they play now.
Yep.
That's how they play now. So what we'll do is give you a little overview about tomorrow. I mean, you know all about Iowa football. I don't need to go into position groups and tell you how they're doing, but if you got a question, we'll take some questions at the end. So I'll start with the offense. You can talk about the defense. The best news about the offense is the O-line is not only healthy, but they've got starters as backups. That's how deep they are right now. Now let's hope that it stays that way. But if you remember last year, the Hawks were really good guard to guard. Rusty Feth, Logan Jones, Connor Colby, all Big Ten. Connor Colby was a freshman All-American. He's now a 5th-year, 6th-year guy. So we were really good guard to guard. But the tackles could never stay healthy. Mason Richmond, Nick DeYoung, pick a tackle. They were always beat up. Bo Stevens, they even tried him out. Not Bo Stevens, but everybody they tried either got hurt or was playing out of position. Tyler Ellsbury, who's back this year, was interchangeable. Tyler played guard, center. You could even throw him out there at tackle if you wanted to. So the offensive line, they're all back. They're all back with the exception of Rusty Feth. Don't you like that name for an offensive lineman? Rusty Feth. Had a red beard hang down to his navel. I mean, that's an offensive lineman. And the other component is our quarterbacks are healthy. Now, I hesitate to even say that, but Cade McNamara, I was at the final fall camp practice, and that's the best I've seen him in the 5 practices I watched this fall out of the 15. But he's confident, a little hesitant to plant that left leg and throw. Now he's top drawer. He looked great last Saturday, and I know they've had a good week of practice. The running backs, they got a stable of 3. They got more than 3, but Kamari Moulton has really elevated his game to where he's starting tomorrow. And, with our running backs, if you're a starter, okay, how many snaps you going to get? And Kirk likes to go with who's good early on and keep feeding that horse the bale of hay, right? But you'll see Caleb Johnson. You'll see LeSean Williams is finally healthy. He was nicked up a lot during camp. Tight ends, I don't really need to go into tight ends. Luke Lachey's back healthy, thank God. Addison Ostringa, those will be the first 2 you see out there. A kid that I really was impressed with in spring and fall, Zach Ortberg, highly recruited kid out of St. Louis. He'll be out there tomorrow. So as usual, Iowa tight end U is solid. Wide receivers, that's still kind of a work in progress. The kid that came to Iowa from Northwestern with Brendan Sullivan, kid by the name of Gill, Gill. He's a seasoned junior, 6 foot, 185 pounds. Slot guy, really runs great routes. So you'll see him out there tomorrow in terms of new faces. Jacob Bowie has really come on. He's wearing number 0. You should be able to keep an eye on him. But he's had a tremendous camp. He was a recruit. The coaching staff loves him. And, Seth Anderson, the transfer from Charleston a year ago. But it takes a guy to throw the ball, but we also have to have somebody at the other end that can catch it. And I think we're getting there. You might see a freshman or two out there tomorrow, too. That's the offense in a nutshell. Let's turn to defense. What do you like so far, buddy boy?
Yeah, defense, obviously, it starts up front, starts with their D-line. Y.A. Black, I think he's probably the most important person on the defense. Then you got the other D-tackle, Aaron Graves, who he's in his 3rd year, didn't redshirt, he's already graduated. I think I had to use a COVID year before COVID just to graduate in 5 years. Aaron Graves is a tough kid. And then you've got Ethan Herkett, who plays with a ton of passion and a ton of effort. He's fun to watch. Then Deontay Craig on the other end, he's got NFL talent. He's about as good as we've had in a long time. If he could just put it all together, I think he's going to have an amazing year. And then a couple people backing him up that I think could have breakout years too. Brian Allen looks like an NFL player. Way bigger than I ever was, and stronger and tougher looking. I don't know, all these guys are getting a lot bigger. I don't think I would have got recruited these days. I don't think they're taking 5'11", 190-pound kids. But and then linebackers.
They're taking 5'9", 190-pound kids if their name is Pat Angerer. I can promise you that.
Then linebackers, Nick Jackson, Jay Higgins. I mean, what more can you say about them? Just 2 absolute studs. What I love about them, with as much success as those 2 have had, is they still hustle the ball, and they still play hard, and they still play with the same passion that Iowa defense and Iowa linebackers are known for. And I'm very, very much looking forward to watching them play this year. And then when we play with 4-3, Kyler Fisher will be in. Tough kid, smart kid. Probably my favorite player to watch coming into this year is going to be Sebastian Castro. He's as close to Bob Sanders to me as we've had in a long time. I know that's a tough thing to say. You don't throw Bob Sanders' name out there a lot, but Sebastian really came in strong last year, and he's a good player. And then the back end, we're solid as always. TJ Hall coming in at corner, Jamari Harris, both 2 studs. John Nestor's gonna get in there as well too. I have a feeling he's a really talented kid. Xavier Wampa, who's been really good since he's been here. And then number 30, Quinn Schulte, obviously number 30, Brett Greenwood. He wears that number 30 well. Really talented defense, obviously led by Phil Parker, who's amazing, really good at what he's doing. I'm fired up about this defense, man. It's going to be fun to watch.
Well said, Pat. Thank you. Torrey Taylor is now booming 50-yard punts at Soldier Field for the Bears.
The Bears do punt a lot, don't they?
Yeah, they do punt a lot. Torrey might be their best weapon this year. No, I think the Bears, for you long-suffering Bear fans, they actually got a chance to make the playoffs, I think. But I talked to Torrey a couple weeks ago, and I said, how's camp going? He said, oh, it's brutal. I love the Aussie accent. It's brutal. But he said, I got through the first week okay. And I said, he's averaging 49 yards a punt in the NFL. Now it's gonna change significantly next week.
The specialists just play golf in camp. That's what.
Is that all they do?
I think McAfee and Vinatieri, they just golfed all camp.
Well, our specialists, our new punting specialist, kid named Reese Dakin, he is from the same academy, same kicking school that Torrey Taylor attended in Australia. He's an Aussie. He's from he's 6 foot 222.
Ooh.
6 foot 220 pounds. Torrey was 6'5", about 230. But Reese's leg is very strong, and Torrey's 26 years old right now. He came in at 22. He was a grown man when he came to Iowa. The Hawks really, LeVar Woods, outstanding coach. but he's also got a great eye for talent. This kid is 19, so he's basically out of prep school and hopefully going to have 4 great years like Torrey Taylor. He struggled like any first-year player the first week in camp. He was up and down, a shank here, a 50-yarder there. But last week he found his groove. His consistency is much better. Now, he hasn't punted in front of 70,000 people yet. So be kind to him tomorrow. When there are punters out there, just get after them. And I bring that up because I had my weekly sit-down with Kirk about an hour ago, and I said, what bothers you about first games? He goes, well, obviously, you don't know what the other team, what kind of research they've done, what they might throw at you. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But he said it's take care of the football, no negative yardage plays, and, typically you're going to see a lot of flags, opening game, false starts, guys jumping around, illegal motion, grabbing, holding. Hopefully you keep that to a minimum. Take care of the football, no turnovers, and you're going to love this, run the football. Run the football. I said, well, Iowa fans are going to love to hear that, Kirk. And he has loosened the reins for Tim Lester, no doubt. But on opening day against this opponent that has tremendous frontline starters, but they don't have the depth that Iowa has. It's going to be 80 degrees tomorrow. Not like Monday and Tuesday, but it is going to be warm. And so what you do, you're playing in front of Iowa fans. You want to assert your mentality, your tough redneck mentality on the opposing defense right away. And you do that by running the football, beating on those guys all day long, and hopefully when the second half gets here, then you can start running that passing game. And make no mistake, Tim Lester threw for 11,000 yards and 87 touchdowns at Western Michigan. He knows what the word vertical means. And you're going to see some downfield throws, no doubt about it. You're going to see a lot of jet sweeps, reverses, but within reason. The idea is to win the football game with a balanced offense. And when I was growing up, it was always 60-40 run to pass. If we get 60-40 tomorrow, we'll win the football game. What do you think, buddy boy?
You got me fired up here, Dolph. So Illinois State, they're bringing in a new quarterback, a guy that hasn't started before. Was it Tommy Rittenhouse? And then you've got Jake Rubley as well, too. So make sure we're loud. I could not imagine being a new starting quarterback and going into Kinnick. The fans are going to tear him up. I'm excited about that.
How many of you heard the name Rubley? Rubley, Davenport West. Rob, I know you have. This Rubley is an offspring of Terry. I remember when Terry Rubley, these were all great quarterbacks at Davenport West, the Rubley family. So Jake is the latest in a long line of Rubleys. I think Terry played at quarterback at Iowa State. One went to Tulsa, had a great career. They know how to throw the football. This young guy, Iowa had him in for a visit, recruited him, and he went to Kansas State. And then he ended up transferring across the Midwest to Illinois State, and that's where he is now. So Jake is 6'3", 220 pounds, grew up in Colorado. But Tommy Rittenhouse is probably going to start the game. He's from over near Chicago, the suburb of Geneva. I know where Geneva is. Bobby Hansen, when he was playing for the Bulls, lived in Geneva. It's out there by Aurora, St. Charles, right off of I-88. This kid went to St. Francis and Joliet, powerful Catholic high school in Chicago, and won a state championship. So this kid's a winner. So they got a two-headed monster at quarterback. Now we'll see how they do against the Iowa defense. What concerns me most are their running backs. Mason King transferred in from Northern Illinois. He's a heck of a back. He's 6'2", 225 pounds. Now that's big-time Division I size, but again, I get back to depth, and the Hawks just need to wear these people down tomorrow, and they'll be just fine. They have an All-American wide receiver. Now we're talking about FCS level, and Mark Farley always told me, and this is the same league that has UNI, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. Remember what happened 2 years ago over at Kinnick? What do we have, two safeties and a field goal, I think all by Jack Campbell. And the Hawks got out of Kinnick with a 7-3 win over South Dakota State. This is a great league. Brock Spack, their head coach, was a former defensive coordinator at Purdue, and he would blitz every other snap. He was coming after Hawkeye quarterbacks, and now 4 of their 5 linemen then they played at 52. This is when Joe Tiller was the head coach at Purdue. They sent 4 of those 5 guys with their hand on the ground of the National Football League. So Purdue had good defense, great defenses when Brock Spack was there. He's the head coach. He's been there 15 years. They've had 12 winning seasons. And they played in the national championship game in 2015, the year that Iowa opened up with Northern Illinois. I take that back. They played in 2014, the national title game. We opened up with them here at Kinnick in 2015, and what happened that year? Hawks went undefeated, so maybe that happens again. We can only hope.
I like our odds.
But they got look for a lot of blitzing by Northern Illinois tomorrow. They especially like to bring their defensive ends because they're a little bit undersized, which is typical for an FCS school. But I guarantee you, we won't. The Hawks aren't looking past Northern Illinois. They got quality kids. They got an outstanding head coach, a coach who was recruited by Hayden Fry, Brock Spack. Don't you love that name? Brock Spack. That is a defensive name. He was a great linebacker in high school at Rockford Guilford High School over in Illinois. And he said Hayden and Barry Alvarez were in his living room one day, and Brock was pretty sure he was going to go to Purdue, and he told Barry Alvarez that, and Barry, who was a linebacker coach, said, "That'd be the worst mistake you'd make in your life, son." Barry was always direct. So Brock said, "I look around, I don't see Coach Fry. I can hear him, but I don't see him. And I can hear Mom laughing out in the kitchen." So he said, "I went out in the kitchen, and here's Hayden. He's washing the dishes, and Mom's drying them." So he said, "I learned a valuable lesson that day. Always recruit the mom. Always recruit the mother." It was the same way with Lute Olson. Always recruit the mom. Bobby Hansen was headed to Texas A&M or Marquette, and then his mom met Lute, and she said, "You're going to Iowa, son." So enough of the romance. That's pretty much Northern Illinois and Iowa tomorrow. So we'll open it up for questions here before we conclude. Who's got questions? What do you want to ask? Fire away. Yes, sir. You want to know how much broadcasting experience Pat Angerer has?
I did a semi-pro wrestling match once. You can do that, you can do anything.
So he's not a rookie. He's got good experience.
Yes.
Yeah, buddy. Okay, well, I'll take good care of him.
Oh, suit up for the Hawks. No, sorry, Gary.
The question was, would you rather suit up for the Hawks tomorrow or do the analyst job? He said the right thing. Suit up for the Hawks, for sure. This guy played the game with so much intensity that I could have given you that answer. Who else has a question? Yes, sir. Hi, Mark. Where is Kirk watching the game? I said, "Well, you and Mary are going to order in pizza. What are you going to do? Is she going to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?" They've agreed to watch the game at home. Now, I don't know if they'll be in the same room, and we'll go from there. But you know, I feel so bad for him. I mean, you got the most tenured football coach in America, who self-reported a level 2 violation, which isn't it is not the severest degree, but it is a violation for talking to a kid before, I guess before he entered the transfer portal. And as Brock Spack told me, he said, you know, we're head coaches are more like NFL general managers anymore. He said, with all this NIL, transfer portal, expanded college football playoffs, he said you're so much more than a head football coach. It is a sad testimony, but you know, Kirk typically, as he always does on everything, owned up to it. And we're hoping a one-game suspension is the end of it, because Iowa was the aggressor here. But he'll be at home. One of his offspring suggested he put his swimming trunks on and go out and play around the pool and watch the flat screen. Yeah, you can see Coach Ferentz doing that. Not a chance. But he cannot have, as of midnight tonight, he cannot have any contact with the program, with the coaches or the team until midnight Saturday. And we all know he'll live by that rule. But he'll be watching at home. I mean, I'd love to have a hidden camera watching him during the game, but
he did say he hopes his marriage lasts after the game.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting. You know, you talk about a football family. Brian's at Maryland now. James is with the New York Giants. He's coaching with the Giants, and Steve is out coaching at South Dakota. And so you know, they're such a football family. This is going to be a unique afternoon for Kirk Ferentz, but he'll come through it fine. I'm sure at 12:01 tomorrow night, he'll drive to Starbucks, get his usual coffee, and head to the office to look at the tape. I wouldn't be surprised. Other questions? Other questions, anybody? Yes, sir. The question is, Kids Day looked rough for the quarterbacks. Do you attribute that more to the quarterbacks or to the receivers? I'd say a little bit of both, and more of it with Cade had to do with just, I interviewed him about a week ago. I said, is it more mental or physical? He said, absolutely mental. He said the brace is just a cautionary protective device. He said the knee's 100%. He said, I got to get it through my skull that the knee's going to be fine. And after he takes that first hit tomorrow, hopefully nothing severe, I think he'll be fine. But last Saturday at their final practice, he was throwing the ball with authority, and the guys were catching him. And so I think you got a quarterback who hasn't really played in 2 years. What did he play, 4 games last year? Before he got hurt early in the Michigan State game. Didn't play the year before. Now I will tell you, I like Brendan Sullivan a lot, the kid who transferred in from Northwestern. He's got great deception, you know, pass, fake, and roll. And you know, this kid's 6'2", 230 pounds, but when he takes off, that first step is magnificent. He ran a quarterback draw against our defense now a couple weeks ago, about 17-yard up the gut into the end zone before anybody could lay a glove on. He is eye-blink quick. And I hope we get to see him tomorrow, because that'll mean Iowa will have whatever a comfortable lead is. But you're going to see Brendan Sullivan, because they want to be very protective of Cade, but Cade's a starter, no question about it. So I'd say, you know, in camp, the blame's a little bit at both ends, but the other component there is they're ready to play a different colored uniform. I mean, they've been looking at each other I saw more fights this fall than I have in 27 years, and I think that's a good thing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we'd fought every day.
I was trying to protect you there a little bit.
But, you know, the one thing, too, about those scrimmages and those kids' days and stuff, at that point in the season, defensively, we know all their checks. We know all their code words. We cheat. So you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt there. From a defensive standpoint, we're going to cheat, and we're going to usually look better because we know exactly what they're doing. Absolutely.
And to that point, defense has been so good at Iowa, but another component here is Tim Lester has told his guys, and I'm paraphrasing here, look, that is a great defense. That is one of America's top 5 defenses over there, knocking you sideways. They've been that way for 15 to 20 years. Don't take any off them. Go hit them. And so I'm seeing this offensive line that, other than Logan Jones, averages about 312 a man. They're getting after the defense. The defense was hit a lot this fall and last spring, and that's great to see, because that's going to make Iowa a better football team in the long run. I know, I'm trying to think who was on the offensive line when you were playing, but there had to be some horses.
Yeah, Brian Balaga, Riley Reef.
2 All-Americans.
Yeah.
But it makes for a healthier mentally state for football.
Oh, for sure. When you're out there and you're scrapping, I mean, Julian Vanderbilt, and honestly, I probably fought James Ferentz probably more than I fought anybody, because he would just get in there and he would do such a good job at fighting and blocking you. But you need that competition, you need that fight, because that's what it's going to be, on Saturdays. And you want the hardest thing you're doing is to be during the week, and then on Saturday it's easy.
One or two more questions. Yes, sir. The Pac-12 teams coming in? How they'll fare in the Big Ten? Well, that's a great question. I mean, we'll know. I go back 5 years ago, we kicked the snot out of USC in the Holiday Bowl. Now, they've changed coaches since then. And, USC, I guess by USC standards, hasn't been the old USC, back in the days of all their Heisman Trophy winners. But, Southern Cal is built more like a Big Ten team. UCLA, I think, was one game over 500 a year ago. Clearly, Oregon and Washington are ahead of the curve where USC and UCLA is concerned. But you know what? Now they're going to get to come into the Midwest and recruit kids from Iowa, Nebraska, Ohio, Michigan, because, hey, we're in the Big Ten. But Iowa gets to go to the West Coast now and recruit too. And so, hey, come to Iowa and play. You're going to play in the greatest conference in America, top to bottom, 18 teams. I mean, Oregon is already a brand that is top 10 consistently. There are people picking Oregon to win it all this year. I know Ohio State will have something to say about that. Georgia will have something to say about that. But it's exciting to me to have those four well-known brands. UCLA, you think more basketball, back to the John Wooden days, and they've been very good of late. Oregon, more football than basketball, but they have Phil Knight out there in Nike, so they're going to upgrade all of their teams. And the University of Washington, Seattle's a great destination. We were out there and played the NCAA tournament a few years ago, before things went to hell, pre-COVID. And Seattle's a great city. I mean, I would suggest Seattle on a road trip. They've got the Mariners Stadium and the Seahawks Stadium right next to each other, and right across the river is the Washington campus. It's a great atmosphere. So I think it's 4 big wins for the Big Ten. Obviously, Oregon and Washington are ready to compete right now. We got Washington coming to Kinnick here in a few weeks. And if you got tickets for that game, you're going to see a different style, a different brand, because they're very athletic. And as far as USC, UCLA, they're on the upswing. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't know, did you ever play, did we play any of those teams when you were in school?
No, they were scared.
Yeah.
They didn't want to.
Ferentz always said, after we got our butts kicked by Arizona State out in the desert a long time ago, when Drew Tate was the quarterback, he said, we ain't ever coming back here again. I said, Coach, it's one game. He said, yeah, but you know what? We flew two time zones. We don't recruit out here. We'll get home at 6 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. So, guys will be, they'll be walking zombies for 2 days till they get their body clock back. It made a lot of sense. Kirk's always thinking ahead. But now we're going to go back out there a lot, so it'll be a lot of fun. Be great for the fans to go out there. I know they got special charter flights now for out of Cedar Rapids to LA for just the football game. Same thing for, I think, Ohio State. So it's going to be a win-win, and TV ratings will be through the roof. As long as the TV money keeps coming, it's all good in the Big Ten. Yes, sir. He was surprised that Kamari Moulton is now at the top of the running depth chart. He had a great spring. He had a great fall camp. And if Kirk Ferentz is anything, he's fair. LeSean Williams has been nicked up. He's back now, thankfully 100%, but hasn't played a lot this fall or the last 4 weeks. And Caleb Johnson is solid. Kamari, he's one of the, I like him to Fred Russell. He's 5'8", 185, 190 pounds. When he gets behind those 6'5" guys, he's hard to find. And he busted a few in camp that he took to the end zone. So there's a reason there's a reason Coach Ferentz wants him at the top of the heap. Now, all three are going to play tomorrow, probably Jazz Patterson, too. And what was the other part of your question? Oh, any other surprise players? I mentioned one, Jacob Gill, the wide receiver. I don't know if he's a surprise. I mean, he's a three-year player at Northwestern. Pat Fitzgerald doesn't recruit dummies, and he doesn't recruit bad football players. So he'll play a lot as well.
Defensively, I'd say John Nestor. He might have a shot. Kid's impressive to watch. Brian Allen, too. It's going to be tough to get ahead of Herkett. Herkett's solid, gives a lot of effort, but Brian Allen, he looks like an NFL guy right now. Next year, or 2 years, when Herkett graduates, Brian Allen will be a huge name.
Brian Allen is a monster out of Chicago. They've been waiting for him for a couple of years. He's got all the tools to be that next great defensive end, but you're going to play him ahead of Deontay Craig, Ethan Herkett?
Yeah, those kids are studs.
Yeah. But one thing they need to do is build depth in the defensive front, especially at tackle. Now with Aaron Graves, Y.A. Black, I mean, man, do they look outstanding. And Max Llewellyn, they've got 3 or 4 guys, but a lot of youngsters behind them. And, nowadays, even when you play, you better have 8 guys that you can rotate in that defensive front, because it's a long, hard-hitting game. So those are some of the names that, Brian Allen's going to play. There's a kid, Merriweather, that I really like, but he's running all over the place right now. He's hitting guys right and left, and I can see a lot of flags flying with Mike, but he's going to be a great player. He's long and gangly.
Okay. Washington at running back? Is it Washington?
Pardon?
Washington? Terrell Washington?
Terrell Washington, they've moved to wide receiver. He's got 4.3 speed.
I think he's going to have a big year.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have a big year.
I asked him, I said, boy, tough. I know you're a running back. He said, I rarely ran the ball in high school. They'd always flip me out to the slot, and then I'd just run by everybody and they'd throw me the ball. I said, boy, I hope I see that a lot, son. He's a kid from Florida. We're back in Florida now, getting a lot of that speed, so that helps. All right, we'll end with you, buddy boy. Tomorrow's kid captain. You know what? I had the sheet at the call-in show the other night, but I don't have it with me now. So we'll talk about the kid captain a lot tomorrow.
I'll tell you what, I do know the kid captain will be the toughest person on the field, 100%.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. That's a good question to end on. I don't want to favor any kid captain because we got one every home game. But that's one of the greatest shows in college football is the wave at the end of that first quarter. So let me say a word about Ed Podolak before we conclude. That guy, not only was I next to him for 27 years, but for 41 years he wore the headset during Iowa games. And I think this guy has a lot of Ed Podolak in him, and I mean that in a great positive way. Ed'll be 77 this weekend. And, age catches up with all of us. I'm happy to say he's still involved in the pregame show. He'll do a little 5-minute vignette starting tomorrow on what he sees in the opponent, what he sees about opening day. When Ed's at the top of his game, there's nobody better. And you've listened to him, some of you longer than I have. And he's going to be an integral part of our program going forward. But it was time. It'll be time when I walk out the door. I can't leave this guy hanging for a year anyway. So
I'm gonna need 20 years.
You're stuck with me for another year.
20 years for you here, Gary. 20 more years, Gary.
20 years. I'll be calling the game from the home with an oxygen mask on and drooling. But as long as I got a big 82-inch flat screen in front of me, I can probably call the game. But anyway, one thing about doing Iowa radio is we got the best fans in the world, and I say that because you people are sitting in front of me, and we'll say it again tomorrow. So we'll talk to you then. If you're in the stadium, bring your headsets, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy FRYfest. I will.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the voice of the Iowa Hawkeyes, Mr. Gary Dolphin, and his new sidekick, Mr. Pat Angerer. Let's give him a big round of applause there. Tune in tomorrow. Listen to the Hawks. Tune in tomorrow.